Hello, welcome to another Looney Tunes review video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to follow my journey to review all 1000 classic Looney Tunes shorts and give this video a like as well. So this is a review for Sentimental Romeo, and with me today, my good friend, Kamden Spies. Say hi!
Hey!
So, just a few bits of info to get underway. So, this is, as mentioned, Sentimental Romeo, released on the 24th of March 1951. It had a blue ribbon reissue sometime in 1959. It's the 616th in the series, and it's directed by, who else? Chuck Jones. You can find the short on the Looney Tunes Platinum Collection Volume 2 DVD and Blu-ray set. You can also find this on the complete Pepe Le Pew set. Apparently, that one's harder to find nowadays for, certain reasons, but anyway, It is there if you do find it.
That's one of the few DVDs that for some reason people kept giving me copies of.
Build a nice fortress of Pepe Le Pew DVDs.
Yeah, and I'm like, sell these right now for like $500 when that whole scare came out.
Better than Bitcoin, I'd say. In case you haven't seen this cartoon, I can't show it to you guys here because of copyright on YouTube, but essentially, a cat disguises herself as a skunk in order to be fed at the zoo, but Pepe, who is at the zoo, he's one of the exhibits, thinks that she's a real skunk, and, well, he tries to win her over Pepe style.
Petite femme skunk. The rendezvous, no?
A few bits of trivia for this one. So you'll notice that there's a scene where Pepe is singing Babyface.
You got the cutest little baby face. There's not another one could take your place.
He's imitating Maurice Chevalier, who was a singer, actor, and basically an entertainer. People might know him most via the title song in Aristocats, but before that he had a much bigger career. In fact, he came out of retirement to do Aristocats at the time. One thing I noticed is that this is the first time we see the really exaggerated signage, the whole fake French signs. For sentimental reasons, we only really see Le Paint in one shot, but here they really go all out with that. So not only have the Mel Blanc fake French talking throughout the whole short, we also now have the signage, and so all the elements of a Pepe Le Pew short is basically complete.
They started doing the same thing that Chuck did with the Roadrunner Latin titles, which became less and less even close to being even relatable to Latin.
And that dance at the end, we've actually seen that a few times. In fact, Disney even did it in one short in the mid-30s. So the dance itself is called Apache, which, if you looked at the actual name, it looks like it says Apache, like the Native American people, but no, it's Apache. And it's basically a violent, quote-unquote, discussion, if you will, between a pimp and a prostitute, and you'd have your slaps and punches, and the man would assert his dominance and that sort of thing. So it's kind of like, I guess, wrestling, if you will. So, on a very large scale, but that's basically what this dance is. Yeah, you see that all the time. In fact, Chuck even reuses that element in a few other Pepe shorts down the track as well. It actually makes the scene even funnier because it ends with the, non-dominant figure winning versus the pimp dominating the entire dance. So that's that. Now, before we get into the cartoon, Kamden, you were mentioning to me about Pepe's history in comics around this time.
Pepe Le Pew is an interesting case where he seemed to be a major Warner Brothers character around the time the Bugs Bunny show premiered. And that was true also because Mark Evanier made speculation. I tend to agree with this. I'm going to trash the character a little bit here, but not intentionally. There really was no mass market appeal for the character until they figured out they can put the character on Hallmark cards, or they can put the character because there's enough cartoons to make him a staple of the Bugs Bunny show. They can't put Taz in a This Is It lineup, right? That's why they have Hippity Hopper in there. The Roadrunner had already had its own series, and so would Porky Pig, so that would make sense to put them in the lineup. It's interesting, the main Warner Brothers characters, and when they first started the comic books, was Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, Elmer Fudd, Sniffles, and Mary Jane, which was the character from Beauty and the Beast. Then there was Oliver Owl, which was the character from I Haven't Got a Hat, and Henry Hawk. But as time went on, the popular characters, Tweety and Sylvester, Foghorn Leghorn was, of course, added to the Henry Hawk format. You'd have the Roadrunner, you'd have Yosemite Sam. Pepe Le Pew, they seem to try it time and time again. It never works. They tried it. It's hard to make a one-joke character work, I think, in comic books usually. Did it later with DC, but that's because they tried a totally different format. For example, like Pepe Le Pew, he falls in love with Petunia Pig in one, which ironically, so does Bugs in several early covers too. So that's the interspecies romance is not uncommon. He seems to be a romantic advisor for Daffy Duck in one. He climbs a French mountain with one and saves a guy. He only had his own story like twice in the whole thing, and he would always be a side character. He would be giving Elmer Fudd advice about the French Foreign Legion in one.
So basically what you're saying is Pepe never really had a strong comic career.
I think his biggest following came after the Bugs Bunny show, and I think it particularly happened like around the same time Marvin the Martian came out, and Michigan J. Frog was a big deal. Pepe Le Pew is probably the most hallmarkable, it's a word I just made up, cartoon characters of all time. He just fits the Valentine's Day Hallmark card immediately.
Let's have a chat about this particular cartoon.
Right. I like these cartoons. I'm not criticizing the character. I'm just saying that I don't think his mass appeal started until like well after these cartoons were around.
I quite enjoy a lot of the Pepes. I mean, much like with some of the other Formula shorts, if you watch them one after another, they definitely blur together. They're not that strong.
I think that's true. I think that these blur together a lot more than even the Roadrunners do.
So going through the cartoon, the very start of it, I love the score in the beginning. That stood out to me. And the wonderful establishing shot of the Eiffel Tower. And of course, you know, hey, we're in France.
I do love the designs of the French people. The design of the lady and look at the design of the man walking. Le corn, le pop, 5 centimes. I love the 5 cents le sac. I love it that they're paying by le sac.
Such wonderful design work in this one, and things will get more and more abstract as we go along in the series, but yeah, right now it's still a fantastic look.
I like the title card of this cartoon.
Yes.
I like there was some kind of Romeo and Juliet cartoon, is that right?
Oh, again, they all blurred together, so it'll be good to revisit these.
This was one of them. I think it's the one in the movie theater, the movie studio. I don't know which one it was, though. Someone in the comments is probably yelling, "It's this one, it's this one."
Yes, exactly. A few details I've noticed with this one. I mean, as I mentioned in the trivia, of course, this is the first Pepe Le Pew with the really exaggerated fake French, and everything's so exaggerated to the point, if you look at the lion very closely, he's only got like one whisker on each side, but it's like a French mustache. That mustache just, I don't know, just kills me, and they've got Le Roar as well. Of course, everything has to have Le in it now. If I'm being honest with a lot of the Pepes, and I may change my mind as I rewatch them, but if I'm being honest, I think I find these shorts funnier with the stuff around Pepe versus Pepe himself.
I would agree with that.
But you mentioned something interesting about what skunks actually eat.
Skunks eat rats. They're basically cats that smell. And they only smell if, like, I don't think they smell unless they spray you or something. But that's cartoon logic for you.
Yes, you know, Pepe's like maybe a celebrity skunk, so he gets a nice juicy steak.
I love the name, by the way. Animal Unique. It's nothing to do with the odor, but I think it's very funny.
Exactly. I absolutely love it. And this one has a very absurdist moment in there, which makes absolutely no sense, but it's quite funny. If maybe some people might look at it and they might think it's a little bit on the creepier side. When he creates that fake house room.
I think it's so stupid that it's funny. If it was not so dumb.
You know, some might look at that scene and maybe not find it funny. They might think, oh, it's a bit on the creepier side, like he's entrapping a woman in a house, and it comes across like a horror movie vibe. But people have to also remember, when these shorts were created, there was no malicious intent or anything. It's just humor changes over time. I get where people are coming from with that. Of course, we've got to give props to Mel Blanc and how he does a lot of improvised, like strolling through the park one day.
Voulez chanter, voulez entre nous, oh, elle est très bien, voulez-vous, ha, ha.
I thought that was a really neat touch. I quite enjoyed that. My favorite bit of animation itself would have to be that poodle freaking out. I mean, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that one. My favorite is the Foreign Legion.
And yes, the expression of that man, though, coming out of that tunnel of more, you know, tunnel of love, you know.
Yeah, that really had that expression.
Exactly, and then of course he joins the Foreign Legion, and how many cartoons have referenced the Foreign Legion, as even in WB alone?
So many films that mention it too.
Exactly. It was definitely a theme which I think around the 50s it slowly died off as a funny concept, because a lot of people wouldn't get the reference by that point.
For example, like Laurel and Hardy's Bo Hunks.
Yep.
It's the whole plot of Bo Hunks is they're all in love with the same girl. There's something about romance in the French Foreign Legion that just works.
Exactly. And Pepe himself even joins the Legion in a future short, which we'll discuss once we obviously get to that. Also, another bit of animation, while I'm still remembering it, is the animation of the hammer hitting Pepe, and he's like, then he says, flirt. But look how controlled the animation is of that hammer. If you look at the animation, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's timed to the frame and timed perfectly. Now, as an added bonus, my good friend Dave Germain sent me a recording of his thoughts of not only this short, but also of Chuck Jones. And, he begged and pleaded. I said, fine. No, I'm kidding. He has some wonderful thoughts, which I'm happy to share with you right now.
I'd like to start off by talking about Chuck Jones's work in general. Basically, he created characters only he could do. And those characters were at their best when Mike Maltese was writing. One big example, of course, is the Roadrunner. The only Roadrunner cartoons worth watching are the ones he directed and Mike Maltese co-wrote with him. Everyone else who's tried to make a Roadrunner has fallen flat, Rudolph Floriva being the biggest flop of them all. The other people, the reason they failed is because they didn't truly know what Chuck was doing with Wile E. Coyote. They didn't see him developing the character through facial expressions and body movement, which Chuck was, a master at. Same thing with the Greedy Daffy. Like, if you think about all the best, Greedy Daffy cartoons from the original studio, the zenith, top of the top, were all done by Jones. The same thing with Pepe Le Pew. That's kind of the reason why I think a lot of people just don't get him, because they don't know what Chuck was trying to do with this character. One of the more egregious things that, Mr. Charles Blow said about the Pepe series is that he made Penelope silent as a way to further oppress her. No, he made her silent because he knew how to convey and develop a character through facial expressions and body language, like pure facial expressions and body language. She didn't need to say actual words because she could communicate with her whole body. That's something people need to realize about Chuck Jones's work. I'd also like to draw a comparison between, the work ethic of Golden Age of Warner Brothers Animation and how things are being run at Warner Brothers today. Mainly about Mike Maltese. He actually didn't really like the character of Pepe Le Pew. Nothing to do with the harassment element of the cartoon or anything. He just felt that Chuck Jones had made the formula a little too rigid. Didn't leave enough room for creativity or variety, in Mike's opinion. And yet, Mike Maltese still managed to come up with gags and storylines and ideas for the Pepe series. And not just any ideas, but brilliant ideas. Like this cartoon we're talking about, Sentimental Romeo. That gag when Pepe pulls down the blinds within his own zoo cage, complete with a record player and champagne chilling on ice. That's brilliant.
In terms of rating, I'm giving this one, thinking about 8.5. It's a solid, funny short. Again, putting aside what your feelings may be towards the Pepe character or not, it's still, I think, funny despite Pepe. And really, he doesn't win, so he's doing all this stuff. He doesn't win, so it makes this cartoon all right in my book. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.
Au revoir, pigeon. Sweeting is such part sorrow. She may have been a headache, but vive l'amour.